Chapter 1: The Mysterious Map. It was a rainy afternoon, the kind where puddles filled the streets and the wind made the trees dance. Jack, Lucy, and Benny were stuck inside, which was the worst kind of day for three kids who loved adventure. Their best friend Milo was over too, but even with four of them, there was nothing to do. "I'm so bored, I might actually start doing homework," Jack groaned, flopping onto the couch. Lucy gasped dramatically. "Don't say such terrible things." Benny, the youngest, was upside down on the armchair, wiggling his feet in the air. "We could play hide and seek. I'll hide first." Milo rolled his eyes. "You always hide in the laundry basket. We'd find you in 2 seconds," Benny pouted. "That's because it's cozy." Just then, their dad walked by with a basket of old books and dusty boxes. "What's all that?" Jack asked, peeking inside. "Just some old junk from the basement," Dad said. "I was going to sort through it, but if you kids want to explore, knock yourselves out." 4 pairs of eyes lit up. The basement. The dusty, creaky, kind of creepy basement was full of old stuff, forgotten treasures, and mysterious boxes. It was way better than being bored. "Come on," Lucy said, leading the charge down the stairs. The basement smelled like old wood and a little bit like socks. Jack sneezed as dust swirled in the air. "All right, team," Milo said, rubbing his hands together. "Let's find something cool." They started digging through the boxes. Benny put on a pirate hat that was 3 sizes too big. Jack found an ancient VHS tape and turned it over in his hands. "What is this? Some kind of book?" Lucy sighed. "It's a movie. A very, very old movie." Milo held up a strange rolled-up piece of paper. "Hey, what's this?" Everyone crowded around as he unrolled it. It was yellowed with age, covered in weird symbols, and had squiggly lines crisscrossing all over. "It's a map," Lucy whispered. "A treasure map," Benny shouted. Jack squinted. "Or maybe it's just a drawing of someone's backyard." But then Lucy pointed to a name written at the bottom in faded ink. Captain Jonas Blackwell. The room went silent. Everyone knew that name. It was part of one of the biggest urban legends in town. Captain Jonas Blackwell was an old explorer, or maybe a pirate, or maybe just a really bad tour guide. No one really knew. But the legend said he had hidden treasure somewhere in town. "Do you think it's real?" Benny asked, eyes wide. "Only one way to find out," Milo said, grinning. "Let's solve the first clue." Lucy held up the map. It says, "Where the oak still whispers, the past is heard best." "The whispering oak," Jack said immediately. "It's that weird old tree in the park, the one people say talks to itself. I heard it eats squirrels," Benny whispered. Lucy rolled her eyes. "That's ridiculous. Trees don't eat squirrels." "Then where do they all go?" Benny challenged. "We are not arguing about squirrel-eating trees," Milo interrupted. "We have a map, we have a clue, and we have a mystery to solve." Jack grinned. "Then let's go find a treasure." And just like that, the adventure began. Chapter 2: The Whispering Oak. The rain had stopped by the time the kids reached the town park, but the ground was still muddy and squishy, which Benny discovered when he immediately stepped in a puddle the size of a small lake. "My sock is wet! My sock is wet!" Benny yelled, hopping on one foot. "Your whole shoe is wet," Jack pointed out. "This is the worst day of my life," Benny moaned. "Focus, team," Lucy said, holding up the map. "The clue says, where the oak still whispers, the past is heard best." "That means the whispering oak," Jack said, pointing toward the twisted, gnarled tree in the middle of the park. The tree was huge, its branches stretching in every direction like arms reaching for secrets. Its bark was thick and knotted, and if you got close enough, the wind through the branches made it sound like it was whispering. Or, maybe, something else was whispering. Benny shivered. "I heard that one time a kid touched this tree and turned into a squirrel." "That did not happen," Lucy said, rolling her eyes. "You don't know," Benny whispered dramatically. "Okay, if we were hiding a clue in a giant creepy tree, where would we put it?" Milo asked. Everyone circled the tree, checking the bark, the branches, and even the knotty holes in the trunk. Jack stuck his hand into one. "There's something in here," Jack said excitedly. Everyone gasped. Jack pulled out an old candy wrapper. "Wow, a historic artifact," Milo said dryly. Jack shrugged. "Might still be good." "Do not eat that," Lucy warned. Benny had his hands on the tree trunk, leaning in close. "I don't hear anything whispering," he muttered. Then, suddenly, he jumped back, shrieking, "It whispered! It whispered at me!" Milo's eyes widened. "Wait, did it really?" Benny pointed at the tree, shaking. "No, there's a bug on it, a really big bug." Lucy groaned. Benny, but just as she spoke, something caught her eye. Near the base of the tree, carved into the bark, was a strange symbol, a compass with an arrow pointing west, and right underneath, in tiny letters, it said, "Follow the path where shadows rest." "That has to be the next clue," Jack said. Milo pulled out his phone and snapped a picture of the carving. "We should write this down, in case, we get lost or eaten by the squirrel people." Lucy studied the map again. The path where shadows rest? What does that mean? Jack thought for a second. Maybe somewhere dark. Benny gasped. The library basement. "The library doesn't have a basement," Lucy sighed. "Oh." Benny looked disappointed. Milo rubbed his chin. "What about the abandoned train station? That place is pretty dark and creepy." The kids looked at each other. The abandoned train station had been closed for decades. People said there were secret tunnels underneath, used by smugglers, outlaws, and people who wanted to disappear. It was the creepiest place in town, and the next clue was probably inside. "Awesome," Jack grinned. "Let's go." Benny gulped. "Right now?" "Yes, right now." But, what if the squirrel people live there?" Lucy sighed and grabbed Benny's arm. "Come on. If you get turned into a squirrel, we'll still be your friends." Benny groaned, but he followed as they headed toward their next adventure. Chapter 3, The Forgotten Tunnels. The old train station sat at the edge of town, forgotten and crumbling. The windows were boarded up, the doors chained shut, and a big rusty sign out front read, "Danger, do not enter." Jack grinned. "Well, that's inviting." Benny frowned. "You know what else is inviting? Going home and eating a snack." Milo was already scouting the perimeter, looking for a way inside. "I heard this place used to be a hideout for smugglers," he said. "They had tunnels underneath to move stuff without getting caught." Lucy pointed to the map. "And our clue says, follow the path where shadows rest." If those tunnels are still there, that could be where we need to go. Benny sighed dramatically. Or, and I'm just throwing this out there, we could not crawl into dark, possibly haunted tunnels. Jack patted Benny's shoulder. "If we get eaten by ghosts, I promise you can have my baseball cards." Benny sniffed. "I don't even like baseball. Then I promise you won't get my baseball cards." Benny thought about it. "That actually seems fair." Milo waved them over. "I found something." Behind the station, half buried under weeds and broken bricks, was a rusty old door set into the ground. Jack crouched down. "It's a cellar door." He tugged the handle. It didn't budge. Lucy helped. Still nothing. Benny grabbed the handle and gave it a tiny pull. "Nope, locked forever. Let's go." "Wait," Milo said. He pulled something from his backpack, a crowbar. Everyone stared at him. "Why do you have a crowbar?" Lucy asked. Milo shrugged. "For emergencies." "This is definitely an emergency," Jack said, stepping aside. With a creaky groan, the door popped open, revealing a set of stone steps leading down into darkness. A cold, musty breeze drifted up. Benny took a deep breath. "Okay, if I don't make it out, tell Mom I love her." Jack ruffled his hair. "You tell her yourself, Drama King." One by one, they climbed down the steps. The tunnel was long, narrow, and made of stone. It smelled like damp earth and old wood. Their footsteps echoed, and every few steps, water dripped from the ceiling with an eerie plip, plip, plip. Benny clung to Lucy's arm. "I don't like the way it's plipping in here." Milo held up his flashlight. "It's fine. These tunnels have been here for over 100 years. Nothing scary." Something scuttled in the darkness. "What was that?" Jack whispered. They all froze. The sound came again, a rustling, scratching noise. Benny grabbed Jack's arm. "It's the ghosts." "I knew it." Jack swallowed. "Maybe it's just the wind." The noise got closer. Lucy braced herself. "Okay, on the count of 3, we run. 1, 2, 3. They took off running down the tunnel, screaming until they rounded a corner and came face to face with a very confused raccoon. The raccoon blinked at them. The kids blinked at the raccoon. It sniffed. Then it waddled away. "Oh," Milo said. Benny collapsed against the wall. "I think I aged 5 years." Lucy sighed. "Can we please focus? We need to find the next clue." They looked around. The tunnel led to an old wooden door, its surface cracked with age. Jack reached for the handle and pushed. The door creaked open, revealing a small, hidden chamber. Inside, stacked against the walls, were dusty wooden crates and a rusted lantern sitting on top of one. Milo picked up the lantern. "This is really old." Jack turned it over in his hands. "Wait, there's something inside." He shook it, and a rolled-up paper slid out. Lucy grabbed it and unrolled it. More faded writing, another clue. She read aloud, "Where the silver once flowed, the past runs deep." Jack frowned. Silver? Like a bank? Milo's eyes lit up. No, the old silver mine. Benny groaned. Oh, great. First creepy tunnels, and now we're going into a hole in the ground? Jack grinned. That's the plan. Benny sighed. I miss being bored. Lucy tucked the clue into her pocket. Come on, team, to the mine. And with that, they climbed out of the tunnel, on their way to the next adventure. Chapter 4, The Silver Mine Adventure. The silver mine sat on the outskirts of town, surrounded by tall trees and rustling grass. It had been closed for decades, but the entrance was still there, a giant dark hole in the side of a rocky hill. Benny stared at it. I hate it. Jack clapped a hand on his shoulder. You hate everything fun. Benny nodded. Exactly. Lucy unfolded the clue they found in the tunnel and read it again. Where the silver once flowed, the past runs deep. Milo squinted at the mine entrance. Well, silver used to flow here, and this place is definitely deep. So we're going in, aren't we? Jack grinned. Obviously. Benny sighed. Of course we are. The kids stepped into the mine, flashlights beaming ahead. The air was cool and dusty, and the wooden beams that held up the walls looked ancient and wobbly. Benny frowned. Are we sure this place isn't going to collapse and bury us forever? Lucy shrugged. Only one way to find out. Benny groaned. The deeper they went, the darker and quieter it got. Their footsteps echoed on the rocky ground, and small trickles of water dripped from the ceiling. Jack swung his flashlight around. This is actually pretty cool, Milo nodded. Yeah, if we weren't on a potentially dangerous treasure hunt, I'd want to explore more. Benny shook his head. I'd rather be at home, safely watching cartoons. Lucy ignored them and examined the walls. Look, she said, pointing to something carved into the rock. It was a symbol, a small X with an arrow pointing left. That has to mean something, Jack said. Milo nodded. Probably that we should go left, Benny gulped. Or that we shouldn't, like a stay away, danger ahead kind of thing? Jack rolled his eyes. Only one way to find out. Benny groaned again. Why do we keep finding out things? The kids followed the arrow, stepping carefully over loose rocks. The tunnel opened into a small cavern where an old wooden crate sat in the corner, half buried in dust and dirt. Jack rushed over. Guys, this could be it! Benny crossed his arms. If this is just another box of old candy wrappers, I'm going home. Jack pried the crate open, revealing an old metal box. Lucy knelt beside him. Look, it has markings on it. She dusted off the lid, revealing a symbol matching the one on their map. This is it, Milo whispered. Jack flipped the rusty latch and lifted the lid. Inside was a rolled-up parchment. Lucy carefully unrolled it and read aloud, The path leads to judgment, where stone faces watch and time stands still. Everyone fell silent. I have no idea what that means, Jack admitted. Milo rubbed his chin. Judgment, stone faces? Sounds like a courthouse? Lucy's eyes widened. The old courthouse downtown. It has those weird gargoyle statues on top. Jack grinned. That has to be the next clue. Benny sighed. So we're done with the mine? Yes, Lucy said. Benny threw his hands in the air. Best news ever. Jack stood up, tucking the parchment to his backpack. All right, gang. Next stop, the courthouse gargoyles. And with that, the kids climbed out of the mine, one step closer to finding the treasure. Chapter 5, The Courthouse Gargoyle's Secret. The next morning, the kids stood in front of the old courthouse. It was a tall stone building with wide steps leading up to a massive wooden door. Perched on top, staring down like grumpy stone guardians, were 4 gargoyles. Benny craned his neck. I don't like the way they're looking at me. Jack smirked. Probably because they know you'd be the first one to run away. Benny crossed his arms. I would not. I would just walk away very quickly. Milo pulled out the parchment they found in the mine. The clue said, The path leads to judgment, where stone faces watch and time stands still. Lucy nodded. Judgment. That makes sense for a courthouse, and the stone faces must be the gargoyles. Benny squinted up at them. And the time stands still part? Jack thought for a second. Maybe it means a clock. He pointed to the big courthouse clock mounted above the entrance. Milo's eyes widened. You're right, that clock hasn't worked in years. Lucy pulled out her phone and zoomed in on the gargoyles. There, the one on the left is holding something, Benny gasped. Is it a squirrel? No, Lucy sighed. It's a small metal key. Jack grinned. Well, guess we have to go get it. Benny stared at him. You mean climb up there? On the actual building? Jack shrugged. Unless you have a better idea, Benny nodded. Yes, we go home and never come back. Milo ignored him and looked around. We need to get to that ledge. Maybe there's a way up inside the courthouse. Lucy pointed to the side entrance. There's a way in. Let's move. The kids slipped through the side door and found themselves in a long hallway lined with old wooden benches and faded portraits of serious-looking judges. Benny shivered. Why does everyone in these paintings look like they just caught me eating cookies before dinner? Jack smirked. Because you do eat cookies before dinner. Yeah, but they don't have to judge me about it. Milo spotted a staircase leading up. Come on, that key isn't going to grab itself. The stairs led to a narrow balcony overlooking the main entrance. The gargoyle with the key was just a few feet away. Jack climbed onto the ledge. I just need to reach it. Lucy grabbed his arm. Be careful, if you fall, I am not carrying you home. Jack inched closer, stretching his arm toward the gargoyle. The stone was rough and cold, and the key was just barely out of reach. Milo held his breath. Almost. Jack's fingers brushed the key, and then a loud voice boomed from below. Hey, what are you kids doing up there? Jack jerked in surprise, and for a split second he wobbled. Lucy grabbed his shirt and yanked him back to safety. Jack gasped. Okay, that was a bad moment. Benny peeked over the railing. Guys? A security guard stood at the bottom of the stairs, arms crossed. The kids froze. Lucy thought fast. She cleared her throat and said very professionally, We're, working on a school history project. Jack nodded quickly. Yeah, about, architectural design, Milo added, and how, gargoyles symbolize justice. Benny blinked. What are we talking about? Lucy nudged him. The project, Benny. The guard raised an eyebrow. Uh-huh. And does your history project involve climbing on the building? Jack gave his best innocent smile. It's interactive learning, the guard sighed. Kids these days, he pointed to the door. Go, home. The kids hurried out before he changed his mind. Outside, Benny groaned. Well, that was a complete disaster. Now what? Milo grinned and held up something small and shiny. The key, Jack gasped. Milo nodded, snatched it right before Jack almost fell to his doom. Jack grinned. Milo, you genius. Benny wiped his forehead. Great. Can we go home now? Lucy turned the key over in her hands. Not yet. We still need to figure out what it opens. Jack thought for a second. If I were a mysterious key, I'd belong to a mysterious old box. Milo's eyes widened. Wait, what if it's for something in Benny's house? Benny frowned. Why my house? Lucy pulled out the map and pointed to the name at the bottom. Captain Jonas Blackwell. Jack looked at Benny. And who just found out he's related to him? Benny's mouth fell open. Me, Lucy nodded. And your family has that really old globe on the fireplace. It's been there forever. Milo grinned. And what if this key fits inside it? Jack clapped his hands together. Then I think we just found our next clue. Benny groaned. I knew my house was haunted. Lucy rolled her eyes. It's not haunted, Benny. I'm just saying first we find out my ancestor hid treasure, and now we have to open my ancient family heirloom. If my house turns into a pirate ship, I'm moving out. Jack slung an arm around Benny's shoulders. Come on, Captain Benny Blackwell. Let's go open your magical family globe. Benny sighed as they headed toward his house. Fine, he muttered, but if we summon a pirate ghost, it's your problem. Chapter 6, The Family Connection and the Final Clue. Benny's house was a cozy old place filled with creaky floors, mismatched furniture, and the smell of fresh-baked cookies, because his mom always had cookies. But today, the kids weren't there for snacks. They were there for the globe. It sat on the mantel above the fireplace, looking harmless enough. But now the kids knew better. Benny pointed at it. That thing is older than dirt. My mom says it's been in our family for generations. Jack grinned. And now we know why. Lucy pulled out the key they found at the courthouse. Only one way to find out if this thing is hiding something. Benny crossed his arms. Okay, but if a pirate ghost flies out and yells at us, I am not responsible. Lucy ignored him and turned the globe over in her hands. Sure enough, on the bottom, there was a tiny keyhole. Jack held his breath. Here goes nothing. Lucy inserted the key and turned it. With a soft click, the globe popped open. Milo leaned in. There's something inside. Lucy reached in and pulled out a small, folded piece of parchment. It was yellowed with age and covered in faded ink. Jack unfolded it carefully. Jack read aloud, "Seek where stone marks the end, where names live on but voices fade. Beneath the past, the treasure waits." Everyone stared at each other. "Okay, what?" Benny asked. Lucy's eyes widened. "I think it means," she hesitated, "a cemetery." Benny immediately backed up. "Nope. No. We are not doing a creepy night graveyard adventure." Jack smirked. "Who said anything about midnight?" Benny folded his arms. "It's always midnight in a cemetery." Milo grinned. "Come on, Benny. Think about it. Buried treasure in an actual buried place? Makes sense." Benny shook his head. "It makes zero sense. Who hides gold and jewels in a place full of skeletons?" Jack shrugged. "A pirate?" Milo nodded. "An outlaw?" Lucy grinned. "A mysterious ancestor of yours?" Benny groaned. "I hate this family." Jack patted his shoulder. "Well, you're stuck with it, Captain Benny, so let's go find your great-great-great-grandfather's buried treasure." Benny sighed dramatically. "Fine, but if we wake up a ghost, I am running faster than all of you." Milo grinned. "Fair." And with that, the kids headed toward the Old Town Cemetery, one step closer to finding the treasure. Chapter 7. The Treasure and Their Heroic Decision. The town cemetery was older than anyone could remember. It sat on a small hill with crooked iron gates and rows of old, weathered tombstones. The trees swayed in the breeze, casting long shadows over the grass. Benny shivered. "This place is way too quiet," Jack grinned. "That's because it's a cemetery." Benny frowned. "Exactly! That means something is watching us." Lucy rolled her eyes. "Nothing is watching us." Benny narrowed his eyes. "How do you know?" Lucy sighed. "Because ghosts aren't real." Benny crossed his arms. "And yet, here we are, digging in a graveyard looking for pirate treasure." Milo shook his head. "It's not pirate treasure, it's outlaw treasure." Jack pulled out the final clue from the globe and read it again. "Seek where stone marks the end, where names live on but voices fade. Beneath the past, the treasure waits." Lucy pointed toward the oldest section of the cemetery. "I think it means we need to look for an old gravestone." Jack nodded. "Yeah. One that belongs to Captain Jonas Blackwell." The kids spread out, searching the gravestones. The names were faded, and some were so old the stone had started to crumble. Milo called out, "Over here! I found something!" They gathered around as he pointed to a tall, cracked headstone. The name on it read, "Captain Jonas Blackwell, 1875. Benny stared at it. "Okay, so this is my great-great-great-grandfather?" Jack grinned. "Guess so." Benny folded his arms. "Cool. Wish he could have just mailed me the treasure instead." Milo kicked at the ground near the base of the tombstone. His foot hit something hard. Everyone froze. Jack's eyes widened. "Was that?" Milo dropped to his knees and started digging with his hands. Lucy grabbed a small shovel from her backpack because she was always prepared and helped. Within minutes, they uncovered a wooden chest, half buried in the dirt. Benny gasped. "It's real," Jack grinned. "Told you." Lucy brushed away the dirt and found an iron lock sealing the chest shut. Milo pulled out the key they found at the courthouse. "Let's see if this works." He slid it into the lock, turned it. Click. The lock popped open. Jack grabbed the lid. "Ready?" Everyone nodded. Jack lifted the lid. Inside, glinting in the moonlight, was a pile of gold coins, gemstones, and old artifacts. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Benny whispered, "We are so rich!" Jack let out a breath. "Whoa!" Milo picked up a gold coin, turning it over in his hand. "This stuff has to be hundreds of years old." Lucy pulled out an old leather journal tucked inside. She flipped through the pages, reading the faded handwriting. "It's a letter," she said, "from Captain Blackwell." Benny blinked. "To who?" Lucy cleared her throat and read aloud, "To the one who finds this treasure, you have proven yourself clever and brave. I leave this not for greed, but for history, for the town that made me and the people who will come after. May it be used wisely." Benny frowned. "Ha! He didn't even say congratulations, Benny." Jack laughed. "Well, he probably didn't know you were going to find it." Milo grinned. "So what do we do now?" The kids sat in a circle staring at the treasure. Jack spoke first. "We could keep it." Milo nodded. "Yeah, but it belongs to history." Lucy tapped the journal. "Captain Blackwell wanted it to be used for the town, not for us." Benny sighed. "So what, we donate it?" Jack nodded. "To the museum, that way everyone can see it." Milo grinned. "And maybe we can keep one gold coin, as a souvenir." Lucy smirked. "You just want to bite it and say, 'Yep, it's real gold.'" Milo shrugged. "Obviously." Benny thought for a moment. "Okay, fine. but can we at least keep some of the money to do something cool? Jack raised an eyebrow. Like what? Benny crossed his arms. Like, buy snacks for the whole school, or build a new playground, or, Lucy cut in, actually, we could donate some to help families who need it. Benny nodded slowly. That's actually a really good idea, Jack grinned. Then it's decided. Milo chuckled. Guess that makes us heroes. Benny sighed dramatically. Fine, but I better get a statue, Jack smirked. A statue of you running away from ghosts? Benny gasped. No, a statue of me finding the treasure. Lucy laughed. You didn't find it, Milo did. Benny threw up his hands. Then at least put my name on the plaque. Everyone laughed as they closed the treasure chest and started carrying it back to town together. The end.